All right, we're going to take a minute before we get started, and then we'll start our introductions. Okay, thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Build Better Cosmetics Faster with Cosmetri, the ultimate software solution for brand managers. Throughout this webinar, you can ask questions in the Q&A box with the question mark icon. And there's also going to be a time to do question and answers at the end of the session. So keep your questions and pop them into the question mark icon box at the end of the webinar. We'll also follow up with a link to the recording so you can refer back to any time. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today, Jacqueline Bellomo, who is our resident cosmetics expert consultant. She has a diverse experience through the cosmetics industry, spanning formulation, regulatory compliance, and product and quality management. She is a seasoned, respected key figure in the cosmetics industry. Jacqueline will guide you through our product life management software, Cosmetri, on how it can change the way you innovate and create your cosmetic products. So Cosmetri was a business that was acquired by Registrar Corp in 2022. Cosmetri is a software that is ISO 22716 GMP compliant, which is a key necessity for specific markets like the EU and future MOCA compliance. Together, Cosmetri with Registrar Corp can provide brand managers with formulation solutions to accelerate and simplify your path to market.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'm very excited to meet with everyone on the brand side today and go through how Cosmetri can help you with your cosmetics brand. So we're going to first talk about the shift that we're seeing in beauty innovation. What is the biggest thing holding brands back? How to build a comprehensive marketing brief, managing formulation development, and of course, the agony of compliance and document retention. We'll also go into some really key label development and dossier management that is key when managing multiple, SKUs and multiple shades within a SKU. And of course, we will go into a live demo of Cosmetri. So what are we seeing in beauty innovation? We are seeing a huge shift, right? We are seeing a redefining of the beauty industry. Younger generations with their own definitions of innovation, enthusiasm to try new brands, right? We have seen that TikTok and Instagram have launched brands to stardom. A brand can pop up on a Monday and by Friday it is all over the place and everyone's buying it, right? So very viral, very social, and it has changed the way that we view beauty brands and products and makeup, right? The enthusiasm to try new things. Loyalty is still there, but there's definitely a part of this generation and a part of the beauty industry that is willing to try new products. And now consumers, I like to say the consumer chemists, right? They love to learn. They want to know about ingredients. They want to know about textures. They want to know about products, right? So you have to get smarter as a brand when you're using certain ingredients, when you are talking about certain ingredients, and of course, the type of product that you're launching into your demographic. The speed to market is not, I think, something new. I think beauty has always been on a 100-mile-per-hour train to launch into retailers, to launch into, e-commerce. But we are seeing lots more launches happen. And it is really first come, first serve, right? If you have that perfect innovation, right, new to market, and you launch it globally, there is just no touching you. And we see this all over social media, right? It helps that consumer facing reach. It helps people to see what a brand is doing, how they're innovating. The biggest thing that I see now is all these teasers, right? So when a brand is getting out there trying to launch a new product, they have months of teasers about what's coming. And again, it really is being first to market with a new concept or new ingredients, and you need to have a really tight process internally as a brand to be able to execute this correctly, right? And I think that is probably the biggest struggle that we have as formulators, as product development managers, is how do we get to market the fastest, but make sure that we protect ourselves, keep our consumers safe, and do all of the necessary steps in achieving a product launch. And that goes heavily into product management and compliance, right? Streamlining that work through departments, managing essential formulation information, and of course, the global regulations that are rapidly increasing. Every time that I open my email, I think I get uh, 10, 11 emails of something changing in the next year, the 5 years, 10 years, and especially with the US as well. We are seeing states take their own actions, retailers take their own actions. So there is a lot to review, a lot to look at when you have a formulation in terms of regulation. And it can be very overwhelming if you are a small and lean brand and you don't necessarily have a full regulatory team or a full compliance team. It's important to make sure you have proper things in place in order to streamline that work correctly. So, what is holding brands back? Having worked on both the brand side, the contract manufacturing side, the service side, I think I have worked in every which way or form and fashion. There is this, process, right, that we all know and that we all like live and breathe for, but not having the proper tools in place really could put gaps in a process, right? So if there's lack of transparency and communication through departments about the process, it can easily lead you down a road where something is missed, something's not approved, something is missing, and it could really slow down or potentially stop a product launch if a step is missed. Having grown up in a lab, right, and being a chemist on a bench, 20 years ago, we used Excel. Some labs still use Excel, right? So you're using this Excel spreadsheet, and that is not what it's built for formulation and compliance and chemistry, right? Excel is a complementary tool for, to help build out trackers and information. It is not a software application designed to take over formulation work for cosmetics. Other software applications, right? We see a lot of people using different type of new product tracker softwares, Reich, all these things to keep track of dates and times. But again, it is not a substitute for a compliance software. It's not a substitute for how to manage your formulation documents. I will always say that most of what I've seen is that people keep their documents on their desktops in folders in Google Share Drives, right? This is not where documents for a formulation should live, right? There should be an audited process and a place where anyone who's involved in the process can get this information. And this is really important too if you sell globally, having a place to store all of your PIF information, all of your registration documents, all your safety assessments. This should not live in Google Drive, right? This should live somewhere that is accessible, audited, and protected. I can't preface enough how much this information is proprietary and sensitive and confidential. So protecting that information is really key, and having that protected gives a sense of ease to the brand as well. And then lastly, manual work. Before we had compliance software, before we had, the ability to use an application such as Cosmetri, a lot of compliance checks, a lot of formulation checks were manual. I used to sit there and with a pencil and a piece of paper and manually go through and check compliance of ingredients, check the percentage of residuals, right? These are all things that took a lot of time, a lot of tears, and are prone to error, right? I mean, how many ingredients do you go through when you're doing these checks and you just kind of take a blind eye while you're reviewing? So it's very important to understand that the manual work that has been done previously for compliance checks and formulation reviews is really living in the Stone Age, right? Like you have to bring yourself up to date. You have to work faster, just like we said before. getting to market fast, getting to market correctly is really key here. So in a brand, right, there's a few things that we just know take place, right? The marketing brief, what's the concept, what's the idea, the formulation development, the compliance and document retention, and then of course the product launch. And I'm going to say this, even though I'm a chemist, the marketing brief for product development is crucial. It is the first step, right? This is where the magic happens in how the thought in someone's mind gets put on paper, then gets formulated, right? So you really need you need to effectively develop the product concept for new launches, right? And any step here that is missed or anything that is miscommunicated really kind of sets the pace and sets the ideas for the chemists to start to develop. So anything missed, they miss, right? So it's really heavily connected, marketing brief, to how the chemist perceives the product concept and how they choose to develop. And this goes into, say, for textures, for ingredients, for claim performance, right? If you're formulating a hydrating moisturizer, right, and your chemist just sees water cream, right? It doesn't see moisturizer, it doesn't see hydrating, right? They might not put the ingredients in there that you need to get some hydration or moisturization claims. Um, Also very important, right? Screen ingredients for compliance before formulation. So if, a brand is saying we really want a moisturizer and we want it to have all these ingredients in it, and you go to find out that some of those ingredients are not compliant globally, or they're not compliant with the retailer, right? Very, very, very important to go back to the brand to be able to say, we screen these ingredients. These are not going to work for our mission or our retailers, right? So having that upfront understanding as well. Review formulations for white space, right? When all the marketing briefs are in one place, and either whether or not they're just product concepts that never make it to a bench or product concepts that do make it to a bench, it's really easy to kind of see your white space when you have all of your marketing briefs in one place, right? Like, oh, we did try to do a hydrating moisturizer. It just didn't seem to fit our mission and our strategy at the time. So let's bring it back in. Or, guys, we have just launched 10 eyeshadows. Maybe we should pivot and try to launch a lip product, right? So things of that nature. You can really kind of see a higher picture when they're all in one place. Again, build out that brand cohesion and strategy. When you have so much SKUs and products for core and holiday and then limited editions, right? Think of all the things that we do throughout the year, and then also new innovation. You have to have that cohesion. And it's hard to do that if you don't have a clear picture of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and where that all sits, right? In timelines. So your marketing brief will have a timeline, outlined. When do we plan to launch this product? When does testing need to be completed? When does a formula approval need to be completed? When are we going into production, right? All these key dates are really important to kick off at the beginning of a marketing brief, right? Chartering out that idea and what that would take to get you to that product launch date. And that way, everyone involved also visibly can see the timelines and the expectations that are expected for that product. I will say timelines are probably the craziest thing to build out, the craziest thing to adhere to, but a really good approach in a marketing brief is having that timeline executed completely. Even if those dates change or approvals change, having a visibility into that is really key. Also, keeping track of benchmarks, target market, shades, packaging concepts, right? This all has to live in that marketing brief as well. If I said I want to launch a liquid eyeshadow, right? And I don't say make sure airtight component, I mean, that could potentially lead to really, really detrimental, results in stability and compatibility, right? Volatiles flashing out. Same goes, I would love a super red lip gloss in a clear component, right? Making these call outs early, and working out the product concept from, in your mind to actual, can change. And you want to see those risks or potential risks that you could could kind of almost run into if you're not 100% transparent of the idea and the thing that you want to accomplish with this product. And again, shades. I mean, people are launching hundreds of shades. I think I just saw a concealer that had 150 shades, right? So understanding what that will take to do that shade range, to have those benchmarks and keeping track of all of that, because we all know foundation shades are just one shift to the right or one shift to the left. So having a really clear marketing brief, benchmarks, shades aligned, packaging concepts. I mean, this is really key in the first step in developing a product. And now, as I said, changes do happen, right? We will see changes through the product development process, and the marketing brief will change with it. So, tracking those changes and fully understanding how those changes can affect timelines, can affect the texture, benchmark shades, etc. But having a place to actually manage that and see the changes is really, really important in this developmental process. And then again, those milestone dates for all departments with checklists is key, right? So PD, you are responsible for shade benchmarks and approval by July 1st, right? R&D, you are responsible for formulation development and samples delivered by June 15th, right? Those key milestone dates and creating those checklists are really important in developing that streamlined development process. That is needed to execute this correctly. Formulation. I love working with PD, working with brands, because this is where I feel the combination from the creative, side and the technical chemistry side really comes together. Maybe not all the time, but definitely you see some real innovation and magic happen when really strong PD and really strong technical chemists come together. But fast tracking that, being how we said, speed to market, right? First to market could be difficult. So you really want to have a system and a software application in place that allows you to formulate your formulations to meet all of the aspects of the marketing brief, right? So the marketing brief is created, it gets hand off to the chemist for formulation development, right? And understanding how that formulation is going to hit all of those asks, right? And then effectively managing, right, the different formula submissions. And this could be whether it's texture changes or shade ranges. I've worked on projects where we've had 20 or so variations of one formulation, right, to get the perfect base. And it could be very confusing with lab codes and going back and saying, you know what, I changed my mind. Let's go back to version 12 and make a tweak from here, right? So effectively managing all those versions is really important for a chemist to understand how to keep track of that and not to potentially make revisions on the wrong base or to approve a wrong base, send a wrong base. You guys get the idea. Also managing multiple shades under one base formulation as well. I always say that when you're doing shades, it can get really crazy. It can get really wild, especially if you have working shade names versus final shade names. You're almost like spinning your wheel, trying to make sure that you don't, call cherry red bubblegum, in development. So really making sure those shades are all aligned and having the right working knee into lab code. Again, aligning formulation variations very easily is important. Increasing traceability for confirmation of accuracy and approved formulations. I mean, these are all key things, right? So working within that marketing brief to ensure that you are hitting all of these benchmarks, you're hitting all of the approved bases, and hitting all those timelines as well, right? So we could be working very hard on getting all these shades, and then we could be bumping up right against the date where we need final approval and we don't even have shade shipped, right? So keeping track of that checklist to ensure dates are achieved. And then, of course, creating the formulation testing for stability, compatibility, and safety, right? Once this formula is approved, what is the next kickoff from, an R&D standpoint, from a safety standpoint and compliance standpoint? And having that visibility, I think, is so important. Chemists are very technical. We love being on the bench. We love formulation. We sometimes feel once we get an approved base, we're done, but there is a lot more work that goes into it. after. So very important to keep track of that and keep track of what those next key steps are. Next up is I want to talk about is compliance and document retention. Coming from a brand, brands are very marketing and PD heavy. They might not necessarily have an R&D or regulatory person on staff. This could be very much outsourced through a contract manufacturer or a consultant. So it's really important for brands, though, to understand how important compliance is, and to have some type of control over their compliance of their formulations. We do put a lot of faith in contract manufacturers, as you know, when you're a brand working with them, that they are doing their due diligence and that they are having full transparency with you about the ingredients in your product. But you want to, as a brand, take control as well. And I say this because, between the retailer list and your mission, your own list, your own restrictive global list, it's really important to take ownership of that yourself. So there are pieces in Cosmetri that allow brands to easily check retailer regulations, global regulations, create personalized restrictive lists that adhere to a brand's mission. You're able to review toxicity data, allergens, impurities. You can do an internal raw material database, and reference ingredients right in that database, manage GHS and chemical properties, store all finished formulation documents and certifications for those raw materials. And I'm saying this because right now brands, I feel, do that, right? There's a product development person sitting somewhere saying, why am I collecting STSs? Why am I collecting raw material documents, right? And it could be overwhelming if that is not your background, right? And that is not where you thrive. And having a software that can help alleviate some of that compliance stress and the compliance information that you need to collect could really help streamline that work through a brand, and also protect the brand, right, of the information that they're having on file, and not being 100% reliant on a contract manufacturer, but more or less relying on the brand to build out their own process for compliance and document retention. A lot of times when I go to new brands or indie brands, that will be the first thing is I ask is, where's all your documents? Where are they? Where are they stored? And a lot of what I, run into is them, well, they're with our contract manufacturer. They hold them for us, right? So taking back that as a brand, I think, is so important. It gives you a layer of protection, that you have all this information readily available. And one thing I've noticed is that there is so much like social media questions and responses that are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, that PD and marketing people are responsible for, that they don't know how to answer, right? Like, does your formulation contain an oil, sunflower oil, right? Like, how, as a PD person, are you supposed to react to that when you don't have a proper system in place that can easily give you that information, right? And you can quickly go and be like, yeah, it does have sunflower seed oil on it, and yeah, if you have a problem with it, you probably should use this product, but our other product doesn't have it, right? Those things can really help you quickly answer those questions. Moreover, and what I'm seeing is a pushback from global regulations as well, asking certain questions about certain products, especially when it comes to ingredients and ingredient listings. Right now, really heavy in the Middle East, right, as the document request of certain residuals and impurities that are in ingredients. So having those readily available, not having to go track this documentation down is really, really key. And I will say a lot of PD people that deal with compliance or document control or retention, once they have a software application like Cosmetri working for them, they're not as angry at compliance and document retention as they used to be. So it definitely brings a different light to this part of product development, that necessarily isn't product development, but really key if you are a lean brand and needing to have some type of compliance software to help you get through the necessary steps needed to go to launch. I am also going to bring up label development. I am the queen of artwork. I will always say that. I'm meticulous when it comes to label reviews and artwork, because it is so important not to mess up artwork. It can be costly, so costly if you print the wrong label or if you launch a label that is out of compliance. Um, I mean, this, depending on what could be wrong, you could literally need to recall your product. You could be denied entry into another country because of the label nonconformance. So when I say label is key, label is the key to getting into your retailer, your countries, your states. It can be very difficult if you are not aware of the multiple label regulations that are out there. US, Canada, Europe, Middle East, I'm going to even say Mexico. I mean, statewide, there are regulations. So it can get very complicated very, very fast. And I always feel that, artwork is rushed, right? I feel like it's like artwork is due and you don't even have ingredient lists and you don't have fill weights, right? So it's really important to manage all of the label information that's needed in one place. And this is to make sure that like a PAO, a shelf life, a anything that is needed in order to properly create a label is all in one place. And this is also has to do with directions, warnings, additional statements, right? So if you're working with aerosols, the types of warning statements you need to have. If you're working with baby products, right, the type of warnings you need to have. All of this combined in one place is really crucial and important to have so that there isn't a misstep in a complete label compliance document. Again, validating PAOs, expiration dates, aligning on net content with the SKU UPC codes, right? So we have products that have different net quantities. We'll have a value size versus a mini size, right? Aligning those SKUs correctly to make sure the proper information is displayed on that artwork and those artwork revisions as well. Managing graphics, right? Like certifications are a huge thing right now, right? We want seals everywhere. We want vegan free. We want, mixed packaging. You think of it, and there is some type of symbol out there for there. So keeping all of those certifications, those seals in one place so that they can be easily accessible and added to your labels when needed. And then, of course, not all of us are graphic designers. We don't have the ability to do some of the very creative work that graphic designers are able to do. So being able to take all that information out and give to a third party, whether it be a graphic designer or whether it be a printing house as well, is really important, because that is going to be, what gets printed, what gets put on your primary, on your secondary. So I can't stress enough how important it is to have all of your artwork, all of your information all in one place. So let's get back to Cosmetri because, I talked a lot about the brand and what it means. And I did that on purpose because I want everyone to feel, what happens on an everyday basis as a brand is normal to feel that way. But how does Cosmetry help in this, right? Like, how does the software help me as a brand get me where I need to be, right? So again, increasing the efficiency and the speed to market, without sacrificing the product. So important to understand that you don't want to sacrifice your product concept, you don't want to sacrifice the quality of your product, but you do want to get to that market really fast. Streamlining new product development, right? So we have these concepts in our head, and then getting them down on paper can sometimes be difficult. Having a place to create all of that imaginative, innovative ideas in your head onto paper and sharing it, right? That is so key. End-to-end oversight from marketing brief to the formulation to the product launch, right? All the steps in between and everything that has to be done is really important to keep track of and have full traceability. Maintaining government compliance and keep proprietary information centralized and secure. Just like I said in the beginning, right? We have people saving things on share drives and Google Drives and desktops, right? This is not how to manage these important documents that are needed for registrations and for protecting the information that you have about your product. If you have a really star seller blockbuster and you're using a combination of ingredients with certain levels that you just found worked, right? The last thing you want is it shared somewhere where somebody can easily access it, right? Save significant time and resources for the integration between departments, right? So if we do have a marketing department, a product development, and an artwork department, right? Creative, having them all work together in a centralized system and knowing where the information can be found. And then again, keeping all teams up to date with cloud-based software accessible for remote or office working. We are seeing a move back to office, but it's important that if you are somewhere, right, and you are working remotely at a factory, or if you're visiting a factory or visiting a trade show, right, you can still access all of your information in one software, and throughout the departments and throughout the teams. All right, so let's get into the demo. I'm very, very excited to show you this. We have worked so hard in really updating what Cosmetri looks like. And I say this because those who have seen it probably in the past will see its little glow up is what I'm going to call it. And we have really went into how to make this work for a brand. And I can't stress enough, and I've used Cosmetri now for 3 years, how easy it is to use, how simple all of the functions are, and how great the team is if you do need help. And I say that because a lot of what we are seeing with software is that you're talking to AI or you're talking to some bot, and you're not getting the information that you need. And our team is so accessible. Our team will tell you how to fix things quickly and easily. It's just a wonderful group to be around and really knows the system well. So what you're seeing here is a dashboard. It has the overview of the entire system, right? So you'll see up here some quick links. You'll see down here some testing schedules. You can even filter it if you want to see task involved. And again, you can make this your own. And I say that because it's very easy to maybe become a little overwhelmed with the software system, but it really is to be designed to work best for you. So for instance, as I was talking about checklists and things that you have to keep track of for milestones, right? You can actually have that all visible here, like signing into your account, seeing what's due, seeing what's completed, who it's assigned to, what project it's assigned to, right? Like a very big overview of everything that's going on in one place. I used to live on Post-its, and it was probably the worst thing I could have ever done because I put a Post-it and hope for the best. This kind of puts everything in check for you, right? So if you're a Post-it person like me, or you're a notebook person, and you write everything down, this is no longer needed. You can put all of your tasks, milestone dates, and any checks and balances that you need to have in Cosmetri and keep track of them. What I want to walk everyone through first is the marketing brief. This is really a unique feature of Cosmetri. A lot of thought went behind this, and that is to say because this is where everything kicks off. And I want to preface that brands have their own marketing briefs, their own concepts, of course, but you will see this really touches everything. So your marketing briefs will be assigned, right? So if you have multiple customers or if your own brand, per the category, per the PDR reference, and then again, the project itself, right? So kicking off, for instance, we'll start with highlighters, right? So we see the the marketing brief attached to a product. First and foremost, setup, right? So what is it? What is this product? Who is the customer? What's the category? When is it required? Comments to timelines, sample requirements, request comments, bulk cost and target, I mean, raw material and production costs, any cost comments that you need to add in here, right? This is the setup. Very important to understand that those are really key things that need to happen when first discussing a product. Now, the concept, right? The good stuff. What is the concept, right? The description of the concept. What are you trying to achieve with this product? What I love is that when we have marketing briefs that are Excel templates and, sent or Word documents, right? You drop in pictures, I guess. You could drop in benchmarks. Here, you can actually keep like your vision board, right into Cosmetri. You can drop in the shade swatches. You can drop in pictures. You can drop in visuals of like, I want a cloud like, texture, and drop a cloud picture in here, right? Like this creates your vision board. And I love the idea that these images can live here and stay here. So you could always come back to be like, this is what I was thinking and feeling when I was developing this concept. Again, benchmarks, very important if you have multiple shades. How are you going to swatch those shades? What are those benchmarks? What is the shade name? What is the new shade name? Keeping track, right? Product type, very important. If I'm sending you a benchmark that's a liquid, but I want it to be a pressed powder, good information to know during development. Target market, right? Is this a baby product? Is this a teen? Is this for adults? Is this for an older generation? Is this like a universal for men and for women and for children, right? Understanding that is really huge, especially when it goes into safety profiles, and the chemist understanding levels, right, that are sensitive for babies versus not sensitive for adults. So things like that are very important to know when you're doing your demographic and your target market. Colors, right? So what are the colors? What are we are going to be using? Appearance comments, right? Shimmery, but needs to have a glow, buildable without coming off. Perfume, flavor. I cannot tell you how many times that I forget to tell a flavor mod when we're doing product concepts. And then we're at the end, base approved, and it's like, well, where's the vanilla? And it's a vanilla. Where did the vanilla come from? So very important to make those key call outs up front. And a reminder to the one that's filling out the marketing brief that these are the things that we need to have in order to properly execute the product. Again, there are things that are very specific to brands of that nature, but there's lots of space here to add all of your customized pieces into it. Packaging, again, super important to understand the packaging concept with the formulation. This comes in huge when you're talking about like a mascara, if you're talking about a new whipped unique texture, right? Aligning the packaging concepts with the formula concept, super important at this stage. And we kind of forget that sometimes because we're just hoping that everything works out, but very, very important. And you can even drop in pictures of the packaging as well. And that's where I really, really love, having somewhere where pictures and concept all are married together and you can really see how the vision comes into real life. The checklist. So we have these timelines, right? And we have a perfect timeline that in a perfect world would all happen. But at a product marketing brief kickoff, it's really crucial that everyone is aligned on what timing actually looks like, and who is responsible for certain parts of that timeline. And I say that because there are going to be packaging departments required to start sourcing certain components. There's going to be creative who's going to have to go and get shade swatches or soft touch or all the different departments and what they're going to need to do at this kickoff stage. Testing, right? What does it look like for testing right now? What are lead times? If we have formula approval on July 1st and we need 12 weeks of stability compatibility, where does that bring us, right? So this is where all of that information can kind of kick itself off and live for those initial product details. You can even set meetings, right? Like we need to have a kickoff meeting and this is who is required and this is when we need to have it. And then you can assign those checklist information to specific people and specific departments, right? So that everyone gets notified. This is chartered, marketing brief kicked off. We are full steam ahead. Everybody buckle in. We need to hit the ground and get this approved, right? So this is where you can have that live. And again, I feel that a lot of what we see now with Excel spreadsheets and with Word documents, right? It's keeping track of it, but not keeping track of it how we need to. So you can see here at this last page, this approval page, right? You are going to see the different changes that have been made, the updates that have been made, who have they been made by, and what the status is of that marketing brief. And this is where you will have this life-changing experience where all of a sudden everything makes sense. Everyone knows what's going on for this project. Everyone knows the changes that have been made. No one is confused in the direction of the product. And then you can also customize these, right, for your individual brand requirements. So instead of customer reviewing, you have PD reviewing, right? You have an approved status. You have canceled. You know what? This didn't really come to what we thought it was going to be. All of this goes into play in tracking your marketing your product development concepts through your marketing brief. And I always say that at the end of a project, after we have an approval of a base, we go back and we look at the marketing brief because we want to make sure we hit that, right? We want to make sure that we know everything that's changed, every benchmark that has been made, and we're able to really address it that way. I want to get into products really quickly so I can show everyone what this looks like. So for instance, that highlighter that we just saw attached to that marketing brief, you will be able to manage all of your formula versions and approvals, right? So for instance, if you have a vintage pink shade, you didn't really like it, it needs to be a little bit pinkier, you give redirection, and again, you can manage all of those versions here. You also can manage the status of those versions, meaning if it's approved, if it's pending, if it's still under review. Really, really crucial in how you can keep track of those variations and those approvals. Deeper into this, this is where you are going to see the details of the actual formulation. So as I mentioned, you can have a raw material database, or you can, where you can manage all your raw material documentation. But within that, you can actually build out your formulations and have all your information from those raw materials attached to these formulations. So all documents are transferred over with that raw material, and a place for you to keep all of your finished documents as well. So finished formula MSDS, finished formula stability compatibility, your finished formula vegan compliance statements, all of that information is kept here. And again, you can see raw material, the supplier, you can see the costing of it here, you can see the weight of it in it. So very, very important that you can see that and have that visibility into it. A lot of softwares that I see out there, they really go by the Inky. They'll do the ingredient itself and not connect it to a supplier, not connect it to any documents. And that is really risky. And I say that because this is your formulation. You know what that supplier is. You know the trade name of that raw material. You want to have the exact documents you need because that is what you need for registration. That is what you need for traceability. And I can't stress enough how important it is to build up that database. Now, working with multiple suppliers and multiple raw materials, they can feel a little heavy. Our database, though, does come preloaded with over 34,000 ingredients where you can build your raw materials from those ingredients, and really have a grip on the type of raw materials that you're using. You can even start to streamline and request those raw materials because you already have the compliance data on it, right? You need to use glycerin from Alzo because we have already vetted that glycerin and that is what works for us. And I think that is where you take the control back as a brand, right? You've vetted that raw material, you've used it, you have the documents, that is what you're using. Compliance, right? So getting into the compliance piece, which is again very hard for brands if they don't have regulatory or R&D on staff. Having a quick scan of the raw materials. Now, if you vetted raw materials and you have these scans, doing that back end work is really crucial. But if you are moving into using a software application like Cosmetri, having these scans really helps you kind of finite like everything that you need to check when it comes to compliance for global regulations and for retailer regulations. Cosmetry comes with both. So definitely take advantage of the different types of retailer regulatory lists and global regulatory lists that are needed to scan your products. Right now, I'm kind of showing you what it looks like from an EU standpoint, and what it looks like for, scanning these ingredients. And you can see, right, the regulations are right here. Very easy to hover over any triangle to find out what the information is. So if I click on that triangle, it will bring me to the regulation. It will tell me what the regulation is, and it will tell me why it has either a word of caution or what is what is the issue with that specific ingredient. For this one, it's a purity criteria, right? And it will tell you the source of the data, and it will tell you when it was last verified. So really important that you are constantly being told the compliance data, where it came from, and the last update. Again, this is very heavy from a brand product development perspective, but I think that it's really important to show how a brand can manage compliance and also be able to ask the question, right? So for instance, a benzyl alcohol, right? Maybe you don't know that is a fragrance allergen. Maybe you don't know how that's regulated, but now you do. And benzyl alcohol can be in different substances. What does that mean for the level, right? Do I need to claim this on my label, right? All that information is here. And you start to ask the questions back, right? And you can start to become the expert that you need on your brand side, right? And again, I think it's really important having a database and having all this information so that you can properly address problems and issues when it comes to ingredients or it comes to compliance. Another great feature we have in here is the safety and properties. And this is really important when it comes into play for safety assessments, for exposure ranges. And then again, if there's anything that needs to be done in terms of the safety profiles of the individual ingredients. So meaning if there is a MOS, your LD50s, and then again, if there's anything that needs to have additional safety requests or requirements needed, you can kind of see a very big high picture, a high view from here for a bigger picture, right? And this is coming really into play for Australia, for Canada, right? Like going deeper into these ingredients and their safety profiles and what it means to have that ingredient in that product used that way. So you can have that all here. I want to take you into the label dossier because I talked a lot about labels. So we want to like take a really good look at what that means for a label dossier. One of the best features of Cosmetri is you can export all your label information into a label dossier and hand it over to a creative, hand it over to a printing house, whatever you need. This label section answers everything you could ever imagine: contact details, responsible person, list of ingredients, right? And it goes into even the perfume allergens specifically. You can go into first inky, right? So US inky, Japanese inky, right? You can even change to all capitals. You can have name to only. However you want to design your LOI, you could do that here. Additionally, you can do label warnings and instructions of use and have it kept here. I can't tell you how many times we miss additional warnings or additional statements just because we're moving at a fast pace and we forget that that is an important piece of a label. Generating the list of ingredients, right? So you can see here, there's all different ways: descending by exact, anything under the one you obviously can move. But again, you're able to generate it in a text box like you see below and use that. And again, and I say this because ingredient listings can get a little tricky if you do not have the background to do them or to do them the way that they need to be done for each global regulation. So really great tool here to be able to use. Suggested uses, all here. Shelf life, if you have a PAO versus a shelf life versus an expiration date. Net content with SKUs, all here. And then again, additional graphics like we talked about, like vegan statements, cruelty statements, anything of that nature for the label designer is really crucial here. And then of course the batch number, if you're lasering batch numbers and you need to make sure that there is proper instructions of where it goes, you can keep that here as well. And again, you can export all this information out and hand it over where needed. One last thing I want to also show is the documents. Again, very important if you have vegan statements, gluten-free statements, non-GMO statements, keeping everything in one centralized system is really important. Cost, again, really important. What does it mean to have a cost? You can actually fill out your production costs, your packaging costs, everything associated with it, easily accessible, raw material costs versus, fill costs. tasks all can be done here as well. So that big, dashboard that has all your tasks on it, you can have it completed here as well for the individual product. So if there is certain things missing for an individual product, you can have them easily shown here, and then also additionally on that dashboard page. And then lastly, anything to do with the quality, right? If there's certain tests that have to get done, you can create, those kind of approval statuses, right? So if something is pending because of a test or it failed because of a test, you can kind of capture all that information here as well. There is so much in this system. We are just scraping the top of it. So I don't want to go too heavy into the details, but I think it's really important that you saw from a very high level perspective how to manage your products. I'm going to go quickly back to the list page so you can kind of see as you build out your products, right? You can manage them all easily through the products module. You can see everything that you need to see in terms of formula revisions, in terms of the different types of product, right? So we have highlighters, we have a lipstick, we have a resurfacing scrub, right? You can just overall see how everything is going, where the status is, and easily access it. Not digging in folders, not trying to find Google Share drives. It's all in one place. Next, I would like to take everyone through the raw materials. This is where I was speaking about a raw material database, really crucial too if you are working with multiple suppliers and you have vetted your raw materials, everything can be kept here. A lot of contract manufacturers, if you work with them or if you have your own lab, it's really important that they use ingredients that you have vetted, right? Restarting the wheel is always crazy in my opinion. If something works, right, and something has worked in the past, why would you shift gears in any which way if fashion? Stay on the one that you know, right? So working with building a database of raw materials for your brand that you have vetted. I know so many brands that do this, right? Because they want to do the work once. They don't want to have to do it 10 times. So working with your contract manufacturer too, to create these databases is such a helpful tool because everything will be able to be replicated, right? And then even your registrations through Europe or through Canada, right? You have the same information. And I think that is what's key here is like speed to market. The faster we can get this document approved, the faster we can get to market. But wanted to kind of show you what this kind of looks like. And then if you go to each individual, I'm just going to select one here. You can see you can upload all the information. You can upload the costs. You can upload the documents, right? TDSs, CFAs. You can upload the composition, right? So every time this composition or every time this raw material is used, that composition is saved. You do not need to put that back in there. You're able to have a vetted raw material with the correct composition, the correct costs, the correct documents, the correct safety profiles. That is like what is key here, right? And I want everyone to know how important it is to have this information readily available because the cost, the documents, the compliance check, that all starts with the raw material. We're going to talk quickly about ingredients. Like I mentioned, we come preloaded with over 34,000 ingredients. So really important that if you are looking for a certain ingredient and you can't find it, reach out to us because very important that ingredient is in the system. But those ingredients are already preloaded with all the global requirement data that is needed. So when you saw before, building out these raw materials, once that composition is made on that raw material, that global compliance is attached to that ingredient, which is now attached to that raw material. So it's a really, really smart way to build out your compliance portfolio and build out the ingredients used in your individual raw materials and having that transparency that you need to be globally compliant. More important, right? We want to talk about retailers. Here you can also build out individual advisory lists. So if there is specific mission statements or restrictive lists that you go outside of retailer lists, you can actually build them in here. And additionally, you can have your retailer advisor list here also, meaning that, you know, your Ipsy, your Ulta, your Sephora, your Target Clean, right? This is all visible here. And it's really, really important that you have access to both, right? Global and retailer list. And again, compliance is not a brand's niche, but it definitely helps to have all visibility through this. We are really wearing multiple hats when we're working in this industry nowadays, and it is really important to make sure that you have the right hat on. And you have the hat on, doing it with the tools that you have. I can't stress enough how transparent Cosmetri is for global compliance, for retailer compliance, and how desperately you need to have this in order to operate and streamline all of your products correctly. I want to just kind of circle back and let me get this up for you guys. And let you know how, if you would like a personalized demo, who to contact. And I mean, you have two superstars right here, Francis, who is our commercial sales manager for Cosmetri, and Mallory, who is a key account manager. I mean, these are the best of the best. I'm sure many of you know Francis from the industry. We are so happy to welcome him to the Cosmetri team. And Mallory has been with Cosmetri for 3 years. No one knows the ins and outs better than she does. So please reach out to them if you want to learn more, if you want to have a personalized demo. We will be happy to do so. Once again, thank you for joining us. We are so thrilled that you guys are interested as a brand in our software, and we will be happy to answer any questions. Take care.